Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. How you doing, Kory?
A lot better than you, Nick. A lot better than you, my friend.
It has been a rough evening for myself. Stuck in, about an hour and a half, 2 hours of traffic for, 10-minute drive. So
I'm laughing with you. I promise.
So, hey, it happens. Whatever. I feel like I'll turn that negative energy into the podcast. So if you guys hear a little animosity towards Kory right now, you'll know why. But this is our first mailbag edition. Very excited to hear the questions from everybody, go over these NBA topics, some OTG staff, some OTG listeners. Very cool. And before we get started, always quick reminder, check us out, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. Also, quick shout out to my boy, Caris LeVert. Happy that he doesn't have a serious injury. Obviously dislocation isn't great, but it's a lot better than a fracture, what happened to Gordon Hayward. So very positive on that. You want to hear more about that, check out the Brooklyn Buzz. But to start us off, first question, Jorge Cantu, OTG writer, Twitter handle, Cantu NBA. Who will be the top seed in the Eastern Conference?
I think right now the top seed in each, and also Caris LeVert, get well soon. Glad it wasn't anything serious. It's serious, but not a break and no surgery needed. Back to the question, I think it's got to be the Raptors. I think the Raptors have a complete defense right now. I like the pairing of Lowry and Kawhi Leonard, even though Leonard dribbled off his foot last night or the night before.
It was last night, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned still. I really like that Raptors team. I think they're more complete. The Celtics, it just feels like they're going to need more time to figure it out. I like the Sixers addition of Jimmy Butler. I think it definitely moves them into the top 4 teams in the East, but I don't think it pushes them into the conversation of actually being a dominant team. I think they need more shooting. And then the Bucks. The Bucks probably have the greatest chance of being the winner in the East, aside from the Raptors. But I'm just not sold yet. I think this team still needs more time, so I'm going to go with the Raptors.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Raptors here too. I think you have an argument to be made for Boston, when they get everything in sync, maybe ask me playoff time, who is the favorite to come out of the East? I might give you a different answer, but I think Toronto, where they're at, I know someone mentioned me on Twitter, they just had a loss to the Pelicans by double digits, and then they blew that game against Detroit. Obviously, Dwayne Casey had a little bit of extra energy, playing in Toronto, getting that win. But I like what the Raptors have, a lot of talent, a lot of two-way players, 2 elite players in Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard. And obviously there's improvement across the board from some of the young guys. And like we've talked about, Kawhi can get better, and Nick Nurse is already doing a great job. A lot of flexibility, creativity there. Raptors would be my pick to land a number 1 seed this year.
Not to mention, in recent years, the Raptors have been very active on trying to better their team near the deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something again this year with them trying to better their roster near the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, one role player for them would even give them a huge boost. They also have some young guys that, have some pop on that team. Pascal Siakam's been awesome this year. He's a guy that's really improved too. On to our next question, another OTG contributor, does some work on Instagram, Jacob Simpson. You can follow him on Twitter at Jacob_NBA. Who do you want on your team for the future? Booker, Tatum, or Mitchell? Rank them 1 through 3.
This is a tough one. Tatum and Mitchell obviously haven't been super impressive this year to start. Booker has been pretty impressive, but I think it's still going to be, for me, Tatum, Mitchell, and then Booker. I still love Tatum. We saw what he did last year in the Eastern Conference Finals as just a 19-year-old. And, an offseason with Kobe, and he definitely feels himself so far this year. Sometimes his shot selection can be a little questionable, but I still think he has probably the best environment around him to succeed. And I think he will become that, go-to guy. But, you can't go wrong with Mitchell or Booker.
Sadly, I have the same order, Tatum, Mitchell, and Booker. And for similar reasons, what you said, I think you look at Booker, least amount of defensive upside. He has improved as a passer. He's obviously a lethal shooter. I don't think he's as athletic as, a Tatum or a Mitchell. Then you look at Mitchell, and I think the argument could be made for him to be number 1 because we've seen what he's done in Utah without having great players around him. Obviously, Ricky Rubio hasn't been great this year. Kind of put a little bit more pressure on him. And then for Tatum, I think you look at him as being the number 1 because the offensive skill set is obviously there. The passing can improve. A lot of defensive versatility with that length and wingspan, and he's already done it in the playoffs and had success. And like you said, the situation that Tatum is in, it's very easy for him to develop slowly and kind of have, things kind of almost handed to him in a way where it's not like he has to go out and get it. Where, Mitchell, it's so much pressure is on him right now, and it could hinder him in some ways as he tries to develop. And, Devin Booker obviously doesn't really have any elite teammates.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that from Mitchell. He's even mentioned that he's kind of been pushing to start the year. My only knock against Mitchell is he's just an inefficient scorer at this point. But granted, like you mentioned, he's got to take a lot of the brunt for that offensive load. So it does put a lot of weight on a young guy's shoulders. And I mean, you can even make the case that Booker may be the best scorer of these three, but just not the overall best player of these three.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Booker already, have crazy games, get super hot. And I think, it's not like 1 through 3 in this situation is they're substantially far apart. I think it wouldn't be surprised if somewhere else to make a jump in one off season and pop across the other one or something like that. So I think right now, though, Tatum, Mitchell, Booker is how I label it at this point. On to the next question. OTG contributor, podcast regular guest on here, Jac Manuell. Follow him on Twitter at the JManJBT. Does the drama between KD and Draymond give further reason for Durant to leave Golden State in free agency?
Thank you, Jack, for asking this very, very important question. I don't think it helps. I'll say that much. It definitely doesn't help. Anytime, Kevin Durant has this sensitive side to him. He's made fake Twitter accounts to go at people who come at him. He doesn't like when people come at him. It's been pretty clear. So the fact that his own teammate is calling him the B word, which is bitch. I don't know why I censored myself, but
it's not butt. No.
Yeah, called him a butthead. Like Kevin Durant didn't like that. No, but I definitely don't think it helps. Anytime a teammate is coming at you in that aggressive manner, we know Draymond's overly emotional. So I do think it was kind of just probably the heat of the moment, and Draymond is probably one of those guys who says what he thinks and then kind of thinks later. So I don't think it helps. And, Durant has kind of had, 1 foot out of the door so far in all of his questions, being pretty adamant that he's going to test free agency, that he wants to see what else is out there. And anytime you're the Warriors, and in Draymond's case, you've been there from the start. You guys have been winning titles. You're supposed to win more titles if everybody stays together. And it was just a bad loss. It's funny that this always seems to happen, the issues when Curry's not healthy. I think if Curry's healthy, this end of the game situation doesn't even happen because it's not Durant's shot. It's Curry's shot, and no one even questions the fact that Curry gets the ball in that situation. But yeah, Curry wasn't there, and obviously we have this storyline now.
Yeah, and also Curry wasn't there, in fact, in the locker room because he was injured, and I don't think he was with the team at that day or whatever. So I think that has an impact. It's been mentioned. I think Steve Kerr said today that, Curry's like a mini Tim Duncan in the fact that he kind of keeps everyone settled in that locker room, keeps everybody steady and focused on the goal. Like you said, I don't think this helps, the chance of KD staying, but I think already before the season, it was really an unknown if he was going to stay. For Golden State, I think they could kind of convince him, be like, we tried to protect you. We suspended Draymond 1 game. We told him, we had a team meeting. We don't know what really went on in that meeting. And obviously Draymond and KD were talking today. Will this be a determining factor if he stays? No. But will it impact him possibly in deciding to leave? Maybe. So I think, the whole relationship between him and Draymond and KD, we don't really know how detailed, how well that is. Obviously that whole meme / GIF that we saw last year of them, Draymond talking him up, but we don't really know what's going on between those two and the whole entire Golden State team. So at the end of the day, I can't say it's going to really be a huge factor, but I don't think it'll help in any way.
I did hear a weird, conspiracy theory, and I want to run it by you, that maybe Draymond is being this aggressive towards KD because if KD does in fact re-sign with the Warriors, then the likelihood of Draymond getting the Supermax a year from now becomes less likely. That maybe he's trying to make sure he gets his money. I saw this conspiracy theory. I don't buy it, but what do you think?
I mean, I don't really buy it because Draymond, KD could end up re-signing anyways, and they could tell KD that we're going to trade Draymond. You know what I mean? It's not like
Right.
Draymond carries more value than KD. As good as Draymond is at doing all the small things, he's a glue guy. Kevin Durant makes up for that. Defensively, we talked about his improvements. He's improved as a passer. He's one of the best scorers to ever play in the NBA, let alone basketball. So it's not like it's a hard decision picking between those two, especially if you have to max both of them out regardless.
No, I'm with you on that. I saw it though, and I laughed. If that's a really thought out plan by Draymond, if that's the case.
I think the only way it would make sense for Draymond if other people felt that way in the Golden State locker room. if they felt, you know what, I really don't want Kevin Durant here. People are looking at our championships not the same way, or, they don't like his vibe in the locker room. That's been mentioned as a rumor that he's not the best teammate or whatever. So I guess like if you dig deeper, there's a possibility, but it seemed like you said a conspiracy theory. Next question, though, Nick Boulon, another OTG writer. You can follow him at Nick J. Boulon at Twitter. Which contending team is in the need of a move the most, and what do they need?
This is based on contenders going into the season, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think the Rockets would be one team in a desperate need for a move. Anyone who can play 3-and-D defense, or who can be a 3-and-D player, a wing, someone like Trevor Ariza would be very helpful for them. I'm not exactly sure who that guy would be. It could be as simple as maybe going after a guy like, I don't even know, like Terrence Ross or Jonathan Simmons, someone who can give you some defense and be, somewhat of a threat around the perimeter. Probably Terrence Ross. I think Jonathan Simmons has a great 3-point shot.
Ross had a really big game, I think, last night as well.
Yeah, he hit the game winner against Philly.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I think probably the Sixers. The Sixers, if they want to actually be contenders in the East, they need to add more 3-point shooting, whether that's, a Kyle Korver, who we've mentioned before on this podcast, or some kind of other 3-point threat. Because right now it's JJ Redick, and the next best 3-point shooter is probably Landry Shamet, which is a rookie. And he's been very solid so far, but, you don't like that going into, the season deeper in a league that's full of 3-point shooting.
Yeah, I agree with both those teams. I think just to be different, I'll throw out another team out there. I think Utah Jazz, they were considered a contender going this season. Yeah, they need some offensive pop. We talked about Mitchell having a lot of pressure on him. A lot of that is due to him having so much, not enough offensive teammates to kind of take some of that load off of him. So I think if Utah were to make a move, and that would really give him a boost. Other than that, I'm trying to think about the Eastern Conference. I think Toronto and Boston are fine. And, maybe if we want to throw like the Pacers in there, if they want to like make a bigger move and add another piece to that team and try to like package a first round pick in Miles Turner or something and improve that position, maybe that'd be a possibility.
I saw rumors about the Pacers maybe trying to trade Tyreke Evans in December, possibly, because I guess they haven't been thrilled with his performances to start the year, that they actually thought he was going to be able to do more.
And what, he got suspended a game as well for being late to a meeting or something too, right?
Yeah, he was late to practice, so they suspended him. I mean, it's a little early, but I mean, he definitely hasn't been as impressive as he was last year in Memphis. But granted, last year that Memphis team was really bad. He was playing a lot of minutes, and he had the ball in his hand all the time, and now he's playing alongside Oladipo, who's clearly better. But yeah, the Pacers could definitely use some sort of move to make their offense more dynamic.
Yeah, so that'd be a team I'd keep an eye on. I think the Bucks, I'm not really sure where they would make a move. Obviously, they could probably add another veteran guard that's pretty good that would help that team. I don't think any team right now other than Golden State is super stacked. So any of the quote unquote contenders could use at least a small move to give them a little bit of a boost. Another OTG guy, Jeremy Freed, was on the show a couple weeks ago at Jeremy Freed 3 on Twitter. Is Embiid-Simmons-Butler a championship caliber big three?
It is a championship caliber big three, just not in the current layout of the NBA. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bigger big threes out there. Bigger big threes. That's a little tongue twister. I like these guys together. I think they complement each other very well. You have the point forward in Ben Simmons, who, he can get buckets in transition and around the rim. But he's, obviously he can't even shoot past the free throw line, it feels like, jump shot wise. Jimmy Butler is that two-way wing, a top 20 player, not a great perimeter shooter, but he can give you as a second option offensively. And it's a pretty decent playmaker. And then you have the monster himself, which is Joel Embiid, who can beat you in a variety of ways. Last night against Orlando, he had, 3 3-pointers to start off the game, 14 points in like the first 7 minutes. It was on triple-double watch most of the night. He is definitely the vocal point of this team. And then I think those two guys just complement him very well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, currently they're not the best big three or anything, but they're a team that if you added the right pieces around them, they could be a championship level team and they could get to the finals. I don't know if they could beat Golden State, but you look at Embiid, like you mentioned, being that dominant force. Simmons, obviously the biggest question mark with him is, can he develop that jump shot and really have an impact offensively in the half court sets when, players are taking a couple steps off him and really punish them and knock down a jumper, even if it's an elbow jumper, which is something he needs to add. And like you said, Jimmy Butler, all around player. I think the window though is a little bit smaller because Butler, I don't think is going to last super long into his 30s. Obviously, we know he's played high minutes, dealt with knee injuries already, so it's something to kind of keep an eye on. And obviously, flexibility could be an issue with them. They still have Ben Simmons on the rookie contract, and Embiid's contract isn't too bad for how well he plays. And then obviously, Jimmy Butler is probably going to end up being overpaid, and that's going to kind of hurt them moving forward. It's going to take some really good management from Elton Brand to kind of put the right piece around the squad.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely can be a threat in the East for the next couple of years. But like you mentioned, this window is rather short, especially if Butler doesn't even stay. I mean, I guess that's the bigger question mark. If Butler stays.
I think they probably had some type of assurance from Jimmy Butler that he would stay if they were willing to pay him X amount of money, which is probably the max, I would assume. We've seen crazier things. Maybe they don't get along. Maybe him and Embiid get into a fight, or he's really mean to Markelle Fultz and they don't want to re-sign him. I don't know. But Matt Mottram, also, you can follow him on Twitter at Matt Mottram. He's an OTG listener, OTG fan. Thoughts on De'Aaron Fox, whether or not he's going to be something special?
Fuck yeah, he's going to be special. I was a year late on this one. He was my rookie of the year prediction last year when we did our preview series for the NBA outlet. Obviously, he was not rookie of the year. It was Ben Simmons, and Donovan Mitchell came in second, then Tatum. De'Aaron Fox was far down on that list. But, man, he's been impressive. I've been comparing him to like a John Wall 2.0, except he can actually shoot. Well, at least so far this season, he can shoot. He hasn't been able to shoot in the past, but this year he has developed a three-point shot. Doesn't shoot a ton, but when he does shoot them, they seem to be going in. What's the number, Nick?
44%. Ryan Wheeler, Ryan Wheeler, one of our OTG writers, just wrote an article how he thinks Fox should be an all-star this season if he keeps these numbers up. 18 points per game, 7 assists, over 50% from the field, 44% from three. Like you said, adding that jump shot's a game changer for him. Also, Sacramento's, playing at a really high pace, which is a big boost to someone like him who's super athletic.
Yeah, I mean, finally, after years of having good draft picks and years of being bad and having to get rid of Cousins and everyone questioning the decision, the Kings are in the best position they've been in a lot of years. And this is finally fun to watch Kings basketball.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Finally, all of, the picks have finally started to work out. We mentioned before on the show, Buddy Hield's playing well. Willie Cauley-Stein, Bogdanovich is back. Things are starting to look bright in Sacramento. It'll be interesting to see how they maintain this throughout the whole season. Next question, though, this is also from Matt. What's with last year's rookie slumping, referring to Jayson Tatum and Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on this when we ranked the first three, but, Donovan Mitchell has mentioned that he kind of felt pressure going into the year. Obviously, he had a ton of hype. They upset OKC in that first round. He was a huge part of that. And, in a lot of people's eyes, he was rookie of the year, mine included. I know we can debate that until the cows come home. That's a weird saying to use on a basketball podcast. But I feel like he's just pressing a little bit. He's been kind of banged up with some nagging injuries. And as you've mentioned, he's got a lot of the shoulder on this team offensively. Even though I love Joe Ingles, it feels like he's so hit or miss when it comes to the offensive output he can give. And this team just needs him to be so effective that I think at times it just hurts him. And then when you look at Jayson Tatum, I just think it's, trying to fit Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving back in. There's only one basketball. There's a lot of, they're like 9-10 guys deep. You're trying to figure out who shoots when. And Tatum has definitely been Kobe-ish to start this year. It feels like he kind of took what Kobe said to heart when Kobe said pass is a last resort. So it's him, I think, just trying to develop further as a player. Because I think we all know that he's probably going to be the guy in Boston at some point in time. And I think he realizes that too, but he's just not there yet. So it's the fact that his body is behind his mind, if you will.
Both things for both guys. Mitchell having so much pressure. Tatum with some of that, from the offseason, but also just Boston being in a funk in general, that whole team kind of out of sync. They're kind of starting to find the rhythm a little bit after a win over Chicago. But see what happens. I'm not really too concerned. It's not that uncommon for sophomores to kind of slump. Teams have scouting reports on them. They're kind of adjusting to them. They're playing towards them a little bit more. I think if, we're looking at the end of the season, both of them are still kind of having a little bit of issue, maybe concerned, but not really a big deal in my eyes. Next question, though. Jayson Heyward at J from BK, another OTG listener. With Philly now needing bench help and a shooter, do you think the Nets could swing a Joey Shuttlesworth, a.k.a. Joe Harris, for RHJ and RHJ for Markelle Fultz and Justin Patton deal? Maybe get a second, too.
This would have Nets Twitter, including Nick Fay and Jac Manuell, up in arms at Sean Marks if he was to get swindled like this. This ain't it, Chief. I think this is a way lopsided deal. I think this benefits Philly way more than it benefits the Nets. If you're the Nets, why make this deal? Why would you want another draft pick? Why would you want another guard in Fultz when you already have D'Lo, Dinwiddie, and LeVert when he comes back, and you have Shabazz Napier off the bench? I don't think it makes any sense for Brooklyn. If you're Philly, you're taking it all day.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think the only way the Nets maybe would look at a trade like this if Philly was putting in a first-round pick, because we all know Markelle Fultz value at this time is extremely low. Justin Patton's already dealt with injury in the NBA, hasn't seen really any big minutes, only in the G League. And Joe Harris has been the best three-point shooter in the NBA this season. Rondé struggled, but not a trade that I'd look to take, especially when you have Harris on contract for next year, $8 million.
I have a question. Rondé got hurt last night. What happened?
Just a very slight, it just looked like a little ankle tweak. You know, he went down, his teammates had to carry him off, but it seemed like one of those injuries where it hurts really bad. And then next thing you know, it kind of isn't as bad as you thought. I think it was probably more fear, like seeing his teammate go down the previous game. And now it's like, oh God, now he's injured, but I think he's going to be fine. He's been struggling though. I think some of that's been the offseason, having that injury in the Jeremy Lin charity game and him never really getting reps. He doesn't look quite as springy or athletic as he did last season.
Gotcha.
But what are you thinking of talking Markelle Fultz? Obviously, we saw another video of that like hesitation jump shot, which is just really odd. What are your thoughts on him, and can he, quote unquote, be saved, I guess is the word I'm looking for?
I mean, you're talking about the free throw, right? Where he double clutched?
Yeah, there was another video too. I think of Jimmy Butler, like someone was interviewing him and then he double clutched again while he was at practice.
I saw that. It was like, I saw that. It was like Pete Markelle in the background and Markel's doing the double clutch. Man, we've been talking about Fultz a lot, and we've been all talking about the mechanics and, it's physical, the shoulders and everything else. Well, now it looks mental. And when it becomes mental, I mean, all bets are off. It becomes a different kind of animal you got to deal with, a different kind of beast. And if he's in his own head, if he's not trusting himself, like I've never seen an NBA player, a college player, I can't remember the last time I saw anybody double clutch a free throw. I mean, that's a fluent motion. There isn't much thought into that. I mean, obviously, if you're in a late game situation, it's crunch time. I'm sure there's more thought into it than I'm giving it credit for. But I can't remember the last time I saw someone double clutch it, and that's a complete mental aspect of it. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about it. And now he's coming from the starting lineup and he's going to the bench. He retweeted a tweet that he tweeted from last year saying you can't trust anyone. I think it definitely has become a mental part. I know he fired his shooting coach too. I don't know if you saw that. So it definitely feels like it's mental. And when it comes to mental, you got to believe in yourself. And I don't know how far away from that he's already, drifted from.
Yeah, it's very tough. And like you said, the double clutching thing is just very unnatural. Anybody who's played basketball, you never really like double clutch unless you're like midair and around the layup. But if you're shooting a jump shot, it's never been something you ever considered. You know what I mean? It's not any like part of the motion. I think, like you said, it's all mental. I'm almost buying the fact that I think a change of scenery would be necessary for him to be able to get anywhere close to his draft potential. I don't think it's going to work out in Philly in my eyes.
He's almost got the Charles Barkley golf swing as a jump shot now.
Yeah, and the sucks is he's a young kid, and I feel like that's somewhat of the problem is he's young and he's still developing into an adult. And, all of this outside noise, inside noise, whatever it is not helping him.
Now, Nick, you said maybe a change of scenery. Are there any destinations that you immediately, pop up a red flag or, think he could possibly be a better fit in?
I mean, I think any rebuilding team, any team that there's not pressure to win right now, they just traded for Jimmy Butler. Now is, Eastern Conference Finals or bust type of like momentum there in Philly. I think we mentioned this a little bit before, Orlando, Phoenix, let's see, any other. I mean, even Atlanta, obviously they have Trae Young, but if they were to have him like off the bench or something, allow him to develop, just an environment where there's not a lot of pressure. Even Cleveland sounds amazing, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, he definitely ain't playing for anything in Cleveland this year.
Yeah, so I think any rebuilding team or team not looking to win or compete right now, a tanking team, why not take a risk? Maybe take on a bad contract to get him. I don't think Philly really has that many bad contracts, though.
Yeah, but you may be able to get, as we mentioned earlier, or I mentioned, maybe like a Terrence Ross or somebody like that. Just beat Philly. You could use his 3-point shooting and his, nagging defense possibly in a deal like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have to throw in a second-round pick to get a little bit of a better piece than what Fultz's value's at, because, like we said, it's not very high at the moment, but something to keep an eye on. The news came out today that the Rockets and Melo officially parted ways. Why do you think it didn't work out in Houston?
I think it didn't work out because I think Houston they tinkered too much. I think they lost too many of their core pieces. Losing Trevor Ariza, Balamute. They had an established core, a core that won 65 games together. Let's not forget 65 games, one of the best offenses in NBA history, or if not the best offense in NBA history. They were a game away, 48 minutes from the NBA Finals, and a Chris Paul injury away from possibly being in the NBA Finals. And then they lost two of those core role players, and they brought in Melo and James Ennis, and these guys just aren't the same players. And they were looking for Melo to be, quote unquote, Olympic Melo. And I think that's just asking too much for a guy who's on the backside of his career. He's not very good defensively. As we know, offensively, he just doesn't seem to have the same kind of rhythm. He is a little bit out of shape, in my opinion. He's just older. I just don't think. I don't. And also, let me say this: it's not Melo's fault that this team is struggling. To say it's one guy's fault is completely egregious, because if you look at James Harden, Chris Paul's, Eric Gordon, and even Daryl Morey said this. Every single one of these guys' numbers are down. Everyone's having a down year to start the year, so it's not just Melo that was the issue. But the fact of the matter is, you gotta. You take away all of Melo's minutes, you give them to somebody else who maybe can have a more positive impact in those minutes, maybe defensively, maybe not offensively, but defensively. So I just think it just didn't work. I think Melo's just, I think we can sadly say that he's just washed.
Yeah, I think, like you said, all the points you hit on. Is Houston struggling? Melo wasn't necessarily a great fit. We thought maybe he would change his game a little bit when he got there. But I think Melo right now has to almost be in the perfect situation for him to kind of work out. And I don't know if there is a situation that's perfect for him at the moment. Any team stick out in mind, or it's going to be more so wait out, until somebody has an injury or the buyout market or something like that?
I mean, I know a couple of teams have popped up, like the Lakers, the Heat. We like to always throw that banana boat crew in the same rumors together. I don't think LeBron would want to play with Melo at this point, and Miami could be interesting just because, it's not like they're really playing for anything besides a low playoff seed. Realistically, I didn't think this way 48 hours ago or 24 hours ago, but maybe the best case for him is to go to a team that's tanking, like Cleveland. Go to Cleveland and just live it up, shoot your mid-range shots.
Work on your value.
Maybe go to New York. Maybe go back to New York and play off the bench there and retire maybe. I don't know. I find it hard to think that there's going to be a team contending out there that wants him. I know Philly was also kicking the tires on possibly going after him if he hits waivers. But I just don't see a team that's got any hopes of being a true contender going after Melo after these last two stops where he's been on, pretty good rosters going into the year, and they just haven't worked.
Yeah, and I think one thing that sticks out is both the rosters he was on played better when he wasn't on the floor. And it's just his fit in the current NBA isn't a great match right now. Maybe he gets an offseason in, he changes his game a little bit, loses a little weight, gets a little bit slimmer, a little bit faster or something, because right now what he's doing just isn't working out. Kory, any other thoughts before we get out of here?
This was a high energy. That's my only thought. This was good. Thank you everyone for the mailbag questions. That was a lot of fun. That was a new dynamic I enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the questions. Be sure, we'll probably try to do this once a month or once every other month or whatever. Questions are great. Keep them coming. We could even do more. If you want to hit us with 20 questions, we'll bang them all out. But all right, Kory, as always, big pleasure. And thank everybody for listening. Check us out, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. Also, I hate this now, and goodbye.
Peace out, Knuckleheads.